It's not looking that way, but when I reach the age of 36, I'd love to have a body like Douglas Silva de Andrade. Matt, this weekend we have D. Silva taking on Gaetano Pirrello. And for D. Silva, one of the times Joe Rogan announced one of his fights, he said that the guy looks like an anatomy chart. And he definitely does. And it's going to be interesting to see how he looks coming into this one, having turned 36 in the last 3-4 months, and his last fight was up at 145 against Lerone Murphy. Now, he did lose that one by decision, and he's one of the more interesting fighters in the UFC, because if you look at his losses, they're against very, very good levels of competition. He lost to Rob Font about 4 years ago in a fight that was kind of going back and forth. Font was pushing a really great pace, didn't let Andrade kind of land his shots, and then ultimately ends up finishing him on the mat after Silva picks him up, throws him, and then goes into a guillotine. He then beats Marlon Vera, which was a very impressive fight. He loses to Piotr Jan, where again, he just can't get started, and then he beats Renan Barão. It's an interesting fight for me because at one point, Andrade looked like, hey, this guy could really be something in this division, and he's taking on Gaetano Pirrello, who represents Italy and Belgium. And we're going to throw it on back to a 15-minute card breaks rookie review for Pirrello, who came in on somewhat a short notice, taking on the Pacific Northwest's own Ricky Simón. Now going in to face El Tigre, Gaetano Pirrello out of Belgium. And I have it up on the screen, Italy, or Belgium by way of Italy. But this dude is a striker. And I know a lot of people are going to draw on the fact that he fought Arnold Allen 6 years ago or over 6 years ago, and he lost that one by decision. But if you go through and watch his fights, very, very aggressive fighter, very quick to close distance. He loves the tie clinch. He loves to throw knees up the middle. He throws a lot of power strikes. His cardio is half decent. His grappling's not that great. But overall, he's a very exciting fighter. And a little bit surprised that this is who they tapped to be the short notice replacement, because he hasn't fought in a little over a year. Somewhat similar to Francisco Figueiredo that we also have on this card. And for Gaetano Pirrello, again, you just have to really speak to the striking roots. He's a K1 champ in Europe. He's trained with some of the best in the business. I know in one of his recent fights, and there's a lot of tape on Gaetano Pirrello, so you can't be lazy on this one, but he had Tom Duquesnoy in his corner. Tom,
the Fire Kid.
Where are you at?
Modeling.
Tom Duquesnoy. But overall, going back and watching a lot of Gaetano Pirrello fights, it's really exciting to watch him fight. He always brings it, fight of the night type style if he gets matched up with a striker. I mean, you look at his last loss against Josiro Boye. I know Boye in his last fight ended up fighting Kurt Holobaugh on that card that they had down in Georgia there this past year. Kind of crazy. He lost that fight. He was on a heater, and that was a rematch because Pirrello had won the first fight. Boye goes in there, and, you know, it's not the most competitive fight at the start. Pirello's pouring it on him. Boye gets it to the ground, and Pirrello can't really get back up to his feet. And then if you watch the second round, Pirrello really tries to pour it on again, and Boye lands a couple of good shots, lands a knee, and really stuns him. He lands some left hooks, stuns Pirrello, and then finishes him. So Pirrello can get finished. Now, I know that's the only knockout loss that he has in his career, and it was over 2.5 years ago, so I wouldn't put a ton of stock into it. But you lost to that striker there, and there's questions in the grappling. Now you're taking on Ricky Simón in your UFC debut. This is a tricky one.
Yeah, so let's just go over how you hyped Pirrello. He'd get into a fight of the night style if he's matched up with, what was that?
A striker.
Wait.
It's got to be a striker. Give me the Hulk Hogan.
Oh,
it's got to be a striker.
So they're matching him up with Ricky Simón.
With Gaetano Pirrello, again, I like him in a striking bout with just about anybody. I mean, the guy is explosive, but you look at the last two fighters. Percy Herrera was not in a league whatsoever compared to Ricky Simón. And I get it. Percy Herrera is a striker. He was 6-4 going into that one. He was rail thin and just didn't look ready in that one. And then in the Enzo Maria Ezzi fight, he was 7-5. That was Pirello's last fight. He landed one liver shot, and then from that point on, the commentators went on to say, well, he doesn't even look like he wants to be in there. He looked hurt, but he wasn't accepting damage. He wasn't even accepting kicks, and then Pirrello goes in, throws a knee, and drops him, and the fight's over. Gaetano Pirrello is one of those guys that, like, he's still only 28 years old as well. Both these guys 28, but I feel like kind of the times maybe passed. I mean, if he puts on a statement fight in this one, holy smokes, Gaetano Pirrello, everybody in Belgium should be excited, but Italian MMA has been in a weird spot. I mean, you get Danilo Bellardo, Alessio Di Chirico, but you've got Marvin Vittori way up here. So for Gaetano Pirrello, he can really kind of capitalize on that. I know Alzolino would like that over on Twitter. So for Gaetano Pirrello in that fight, he had zero success, Matt. Absolutely none. So what did you gain from that, and maybe some of the fights that he had coming into the UFC?
Well, you couldn't really gain that much from the Ricky Simón fight, but if anyone can gain from that fight, it will be Douglas Silva de Andrade. Now, I guess we'll get into that later, but for Pirrello, he is a really good striker at distance. I think he has great power for the division, but he's one of these fighters, and we're going to have to find some fighter to be like the face of this category, but he's a good fighter at range when the opponent likes to stay at that range. Now, if you close that distance, he does struggle to fight with guys on the inside because of his size, and it is odd. He's not the biggest guy for this weight division, but he does fight much bigger than his size is. Like I said, he's got a great kick to the body. He likes to go to the leg and to the body, and he's really good with setting up his kicks too. He will do 1-2s and then throw leg kicks behind them, and it's always something you have to watch out for when you are at range with Pirrello. But the issue that you saw in the Ricky Simón fight was if Ricky just decided, hey, we're not striking, all I'm doing is going for takedowns, Pirrello didn't even show the ability to create separation off of the initial takedown, and that's what really concerns me moving forward. 135 has a lot of wrestlers in it, and I know not everybody's a Cody Stamen in the world, but even Douglas Andrade is a really good wrestler for an unranked fighter, and if you show not even basic takedown defense or the ability to get back up from your back, I'm gonna worry about you fighting a guy like Andrade, who has shown the ability in the past to take down guys like even Chito Vera. And Chito Vera is a great jiu-jitsu black belt. He's got great submission wins, and like we all know Chito Vera, he's a really, really tricky fighter on the mat. Andrade beat Vera in a very similar way that I'm assuming he's going to fight Pirrello. He's going to push the pace. You really feel the physicality of Andrade when you fight him. He never gives you the opportunity to breathe. Now, it's a bit of a double-edged sword because at the age of 36, he can't always keep that tough pace up for 15 minutes. Now, I don't think he has bad cardio by any means, especially for being as heavily muscled as he is. I think he has fairly good cardio, especially with the output. I just do worry about him when he does fight those upper level guys, and that's been the issue with Andrade. You had mentioned it. When he loses, they're bad losses. Like the Petr Yan fight is a terrible fight, but that's the thing. You lost to Petr Yan, who really cares? Even going back to the Rob Font fight, he did get outboxed and outworked by Rob Font, but what? Rob Font's ranked, 3rd, 5th in the world right now, so it's not that I worry about the losses, it's just what has happened in those losses. Like, Pirrello, if he can strike from the outside, could probably string together some success like Rob Font was able to do against Andrade.
Yeah, I mean, I look at this one for D. Silva. He's 4-4 in the UFC. His fights at featherweight, the Tukugov fight, but that was on short notice. He was replacing Thiago Tavares. Then he fought Barao and Murphy. Those ones all at 145. This is his first fight at 135 since the Petr Yan fight 2 years and 8 months ago. So we'll see how he makes out making that weight cut. The ones at bantamweight, Gibson, Briones, Font, Vera, and Yan. And for D. Silva, he's earned takedowns against Murphy, Vera, Font, and Briones. His only UFC wins in Brazil and in Mexico. So it'll be interesting to see how he makes out in the States for this one. But yeah, he also walks out to, and I want to make sure I pronounce this properly, but I might butcher it, Conquistando o Impossível. And if you want to listen to a song that'll just tear at your heartstrings, it's D. Silva's walkout song, or at least one that he's walked out to in the past. But Matt, I look at this one, as far as those odds, those pesky odds are concerned, D. Silva's a decent-sized favorite in this one. He opened to -200, he's -245 or thereabouts. Gaetano Pirrello opened to +170, he's a +198. If we look at the Topology votes, 817 of them. 88% Andrade, 76% by decision. For the 12% that have Pirrello, 45% by decision, and 35% by knockout. If D. Silva's weight cut doesn't go horribly wrong, which we can factor in on question mark kicks on Saturday, if this fight actually takes place, yeah, I've got Douglas Silva de Andrade. I think he just puts the wrestling shoes on. I've seen Pirrello struggle with wrestling outside of the UFC, let alone that Simón fight. Again, you can go back and watch some of them. The fight that he had against Josiro Boye. He's had a couple of different rematch fights, and he struggled, in the first fight and so on and so forth. But yeah, he really has struggled with the wrestling, and a guy that's an uber talented striker. And I think, yeah, he could definitely hold his own on the feet, because Silva de Andrade will throw a couple strikes and then reset. And he takes little times like that. Maybe he can capitalize on it, but I like Douglas Andrade here.
Yeah, you said it perfectly too at the beginning. Unless Andrade's weight cut or age just completely catch up to him, and really you don't know about those things until he steps into the cage. That's kind of the problem. But if all things are the same, and if I do get the Andrade that I believe I will, he's beaten guys like Pirrello in the past, and honestly, he's beat guys like Pirrello who have added dimensions to their game. So I do like Andrade.
Both of us in this one going with the Brazilian Douglas Silva de Andrade to get the win. We've got a big time slate of cards in the main event. A couple of Brazilian bangers. Shawnee Walker taking on Thiago Santos. You're not going to want to miss it. So keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say,
Let's get into it.